What's happening? MC Marcus Chapman here, ready to break down show number 16 in the MC 25. This particular show was done on September 26, 1998, and it's called What Men Don't Like About Going Out. Yeah, this was on 1075 WGCI Chicago on a Saturday, Friday night going to Saturday from 3 to 6. All right, the show, The After Set. So here's the backstory on this particular show. This was actually like the second part to a show that I did the previous week. And that show was entitled What Women Don't Like About Going Out. And the idea came from that particular weekend. We were giving away tickets to a ladies' night out concert with all female artists like Deborah Cox, I think Kelly Price. There were several different women who were performing. And so what I did was a lot of times back then, like I did in show number 20, is gospel going too far. I took the weekend giveaway and I flipped it and turned that into a topic. So since we're doing ladies night out and it was all women, I used that opportunity to have women call and say what they didn't like about going out. And so the second part to it was this week right here for show number 16, what men don't like about going out. So the previous week I had women call and say what they didn't like, and I told the guys to listen. And then for this particular show, I had the guys call in and told the women to listen. And the concept was for each side to kind of hear what the other had to say. And maybe by hearing what people didn't like, we could make going out a little bit better. And when I said going out, I meant either going to parties or doing one-on-one stuff, dates, whatever the case may be. If you were just going out and this is what you didn't like, all right? So in this particular show, the man called, and like I said, it's the sequel from the week before. Now, it starts out with the intro that I had that my man Mike Love hooked up. All right, giving them the bits and pieces, the calls and the drops, and I started using the intro in the fall of 97. So I had been using it for about a year at this point. And then I went into What You Own, where people would call and tell me what they were doing for the night. And very early in the show, you hear one of the guys who called saying that I was snapping that night, and I was like, hey, I try to do that every week, but some weeks you just got it. It's like, regardless of what you do, like sometimes you're gonna just be in a better frame of mind, or you're gonna be in a zone, and you're just gonna be bringing it more so than you normally do, even if you're always trying to do your best. So that was, I guess, the kind of feeling that I had at that time. And even when I listen to this show now, I can hear a little something extra in my voice that I didn't hear on some of the previous shows from the weeks before that. So that kind of stood out to me when I went back and listened to it. So once we got to the middle portion of the show, after I did the Janet Jackson giveaway, because that was the weekend giveaway for this show, when we got to the meat of the show, which was the MC rap session about what men didn't like about going out. And what I find interesting about it now, a couple of things. One, you hear guys saying, mentioning spending $10 to get into the clubs. Because at that time, that was the standard rate for most clubs. You paid about $10 to get in back in 1998. There were a couple spots where you had to pay 20, but that wasn't normal. That's more so normal now. I'd say that's been normal since, man, maybe around, I think it kind of started more so the next year. But normally at that time in the 90s, you only paid $10. So that kind of stood out to me. But what's even more interesting is you hear them complaining about buying drinks for women at the clubs. Now, a lot of times from what I've seen, women kind of just, and men too, they just kind of expect that to be the norm, that guys are going to buy women drinks. Now, I'm not a drinker. I haven't been a drinker since about 1995, 96. So it was kind of funny. I drank in college, but I kind of stopped around the same time I started going to real clubs, which was in 95. I'd gone to, parties before that, but they were more like college parties or 18 and up clubs where they weren't serving liquor anyway, and I couldn't have bought it even if I wanted to. But when I started going to real clubs, I didn't really have that much money. I was just coming out of school. But what I noticed was that instead of focusing on the liquor, I was focused on the women, and I was so confident, and I felt good. I was a decent looking guy and go up to a woman and just start talking to her. And what I found was that it kind of helped me stand out more. So the whole buying drinks thing was never an issue. Nobody ever mentioned it to me. It was never questioned because that's what most guys did. And I always felt like after so many guys approached a woman or was trying to buy drinks or talked about buying drinks, they kind of got numb to it. So when somebody came along like me, I was in a different situation. I was working at the radio station. I wasn't even on yet, but it kind of made me stand out. And so I was always able to meet women without buying drinks. So I don't have that same animosity that you hear in the voices of some of these guys who call talking about that. But I understand it because one guy said, he said, bring your own money to the club. I ain't coming to buy you no drinks, and then you hear another guy saying that he felt like, he was being used and he didn't like that. And you hear another guy mention something about it. So women who hear that in the show now, you may find that shocking. I heard, I played a piece of this in class one day, just to let my students at the media school, kind of figure out what some different things were going on in radio. And I heard one of them say that the guys were broke. Well, that's not necessarily true. It wasn't because they was broke. It's because they didn't feel like they should spend their hard-earned money on buying drinks for women. They just didn't see there was no win in that for them because, what if the woman just got the drink and then that was it? Because that's what one guy said, and that happens a lot. So it was really interesting to hear guys call the radio station and say that was something that they didn't like. You hear another guy saying something about places being too small, and I mentioned that men and women complain about that. You hear one guy talking about how you talk to a woman for a long time and everything's cool, and then you ask her for the number, and then she says, "No, well, give me yours," and then she does a call, and I'm like, "Bruh, that's gonna happen," But it was really just a chance to give the guys a platform to say how they felt, and that's what I wanted to do. And I had done the same thing with the women the week before that. So you listen to both shows together, you can really get a good perspective on how people felt in the 90s and 1998 about the experience of going out. And really the only reason why I picked this particular show, why men going out instead of women going out for the official pick for the MC25, was there was something that we used to do called matching up the beats. So sometimes we would get the CD singles from a song, and what we would do is if you needed to talk coming out of it or going into it, you might play the CD single, especially coming out of it. There were a couple of songs out at the time, No Guarantee by by Chico DeBarge and Joe, No Guarantee remix. And then you also had Aaliyah, Are You That Somebody? That was one. So I would take the CD single, turn it to the instrumental, and I would try to hit it on time to match up with the song. And I would fade the song out and fade the instrumental in, so it sounded like the song just kept going. And then I would play my phone call or talk over it or whatever. And the difference between the two shows from this one and the one the previous week is in the Women Going Out show, I didn't do a good job of matching up the beats. It was like the beats were a little off. And on this one, I got them perfectly, so it just sounds better. The other thing along those lines is that I had started doing song edits. Kelly G was DJing at GCI at the time. He went on to be the music director for BET, and I think now he's working at Revolt with Diddy. He had started making song edits, whereas he would put intro time on the song for the on-air personalities to be able to talk over and play phone calls, because sometimes the intros were really short, or there was like some extra noise on there. It might have been some singing where it would clash with you trying to talk over it. It didn't sound like a clean instrumental. So, like, for example, he did a great one on Lauryn Hill, The Sweetest Thing, where he just gave it like a 25-second intro. He had a little breakdown in the middle, and then he did put the intro at the end. And that we always call that the definitive Kelly G edit. It is way better than the regular version of the song that was on the Love Jones soundtrack. So I had started doing edits myself. Matter of fact, the first one I did was Lauryn Hill "Doo Wop That Thing." You hear that in the show where you hear the instrumental come on for like 28 seconds, I think it was, and then the singing comes on. I didn't get paid for that one because the program director Elroy Smith said I didn't do anything but tack the intro on to the beginning. I didn't change it up in any way. So the next one I did was "Half on a Baby" by R. Kelly. Whereas in the original, it starts out with him singing like "oh na 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 na," and you had to talk over that, and it just kind of clashed a little bit. So I took the instrumental, placed that at the beginning, then the lyrics come in. I added a little middle part in there where it broke down. Smith liked those for whatever reason, so I added that. And sometimes you could, add drops, even play a phone call in there. And then at the end, instead of it fading out with him singing like that, I like cut the singing at a certain point and added the instrumental on the end. So that was the first edit that I got paid for, and that was like, I believe this was the first week that it played. So I felt good about that. There was also I did one for Cameron Horse and Carriage, same thing. Put a 20-second intro on, and instead of Mace talking at the end where it fades out, he's like, "We're gonna rise to the top," and he keeps saying stuff. When he got to the "We're gonna rise," I just put up the instrumental on, and it, went out with just the instrumental, so you could talk over the end, you could play drops. It just sounded smoother, and it had 20 seconds on the beginning instead of two. So those are two of the examples of me doing edits that I heard on this particular show, and I think those were the first. This was the first time that I got to use those, so I felt good about that as well. So all of that kind of added to the vibe that I had, and that extra had the little extra thing in the sound when I hear it. So that kind of made this show stand out. Once the rap session was done about men going out, then we went to a feature called "Taking You Back." And because we were giving away Janet Jackson tickets, I played kind of a song that's kind of been forgotten by Janet because it was never on an album, called "And On and On and On." It was the B-side on the "Anytime, Any Place" single. It was a real big hit in summer '94 that a lot of people kind of forgot about. And you hear me talking about saying what's up to everybody who hung out at 63rd and Hayes. That's a park in Chicago on 63rd and Hayes, where a lot of great picnics went down. And summer '94 was the first time I had ever gone there. And it was just like, wow. I remember Memorial Day of that year being there, and that was like one of the best picnics I ever went to. So, I mentioned that, and, gave away the Janet Jackson tickets. And then the last hour was the MC Coffee Club, where people called, and, the idea was if you were trying to extend your night or, get your day started, the show was the coffee to help you have that energy boost to make it through that last hour, or get everything going, and people called for that. And did another giveaway, and that wrapped up the show. So overall, the reason why I picked this show was because I felt like the communication for the part about men going out and combining that with the women going out, I felt like that's just something that I really tried to do. It really represents something that I brought to the radio game. Not saying I was the only person to do it, but I always tried to find a way to get the listeners to understand other people's perspectives, as well as be able to say how they felt about what was going on. And I think this show really captures that. It does a really good job of that. And it's the second of three shows that I picked from this particular era. Like on YouTube, on my channel, I have playlists for each year of my career. So the Chicago 1998 playlist, I'm really proud of a lot of those shows. I did one about would you relocate for better weather, leave Chicago to go somewhere better because the weather was supposedly better. There's one about interracial dating, one about dating in the workplace, piggybacking off the President Clinton, Monica Lewinsky scandal, one about why women like men have inexpensive cars. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. So this combination of the women going out, men going out, what they didn't like, I chose the men as the official pick, but you can check out the one about what women don't like about going out as well from the week before that. But this one is the official pick, so check it out. It's a good show. I like the way it sounds. It just has a good energy to it. The irony is, as good as this show was, I got passed up for a promotion the following week, like that, because this was Friday going to Saturday. So when we got to that week, a couple of changes took place, and I ended up getting passed over for Saturday Night 6 to 10 after Sam Silcat moved up. And I mean, it was just a really devastating thing. It was probably the most depressing thing that happened to me at GCI in Chicago in the 90s. And, I remember just feeling like I remember being told that I got passed up because it was out of sight, out of mind. Well, we didn't think about you. And it was like, so you mean to tell me you had an opening, you didn't look at your staff and say, who all can we get? You just totally forgot about me, like I didn't work there. Because the thing is, I was working at Dr. Wax Records at the time. So I wasn't down at the station during the week that much during the day. I would always come by on Fridays because I didn't work at the record store on Friday. And I would find out what the weekend promotion was, look at the music log, because that kind of helped me prepare for the show. And I remember when I went down that following Friday, I was told that was why I got passed up. And I remember just really it was tripped out because I had already proven that I could do that Saturday night show back in June of '98. So it was interesting that this show was so good and then that happened the next week. But justice prevailed because 3 weeks later I ended up getting that promotion anyway. And that started the rise to stardom in radio. But this particular show right here, September 26, 1998, What Men Don't Like About Going Out. It's a good show, solid show. I'm proud of it. So check it out. The next show comes from a totally different market. Number 15 is a market that I never officially worked in, but I was on a few times. And the official pick for number 15 is a show that you're not even going to hear. I had to get a replacement show for it. And you'll find that out in the next video for number 15. Right now, check out number 16, What Men Don't Like About Going Out. September 26, 1998, WGCI Chicago, MC Marcus Chapman. After set, it was hot. Check it.